Yeah, thank you very much for giving me a little bit extra time here and for allowing me to sit. I'm too small. You won't see me over this towering screen here. Plus, I want to bring in another metaphor, which is that of the table, right? I would like to build upon bridges, build upon democratic reason, build upon the idea of the public square, but also stand here and recognize the debt that I pay and wish to pay to Jeff, because, thank you, without him as a teacher, I don't think that I would have been at all a teacher. And in learning the craft of what it means to teach and to come back here to the new school, which is where I really learned to appreciate what it means to be a teacher, it's a great honor to be here and to follow and participate in this marvelous discussion. So when I was kindly invited by colleagues from the new school to participate in today's symposium celebrating Jeff Goldfarb's, and I do say celebrating, Jeff's academic career and public life, I was ironically teaching from some of the very same books of Hannah Arendt in a class on Hannah Arendt online that I had actually read with Jeff, the same well-worn copies, and particularly of Between Past and Future. And when I received this email, I couldn't believe it. I thought, that is amazing. So it was particularly, now to go back in time, particularly in this doctoral seminar that I had with Jeff in the 1990s, that I really began to appreciate his unique gift that he brings to the way of what? Engaging with other people about issues in the world. So that engagement is exactly an example of democratic reasoning. And in the world, at that time, the world was the classroom around a table. So as we sat around that rectangular table without PowerPoint slides, and often, Jeff, you did not really use the blackboard. You didn't, and you still don't, right? No, and I'm glad. You would begin the seminar based on insights from a chosen reading and then draw out responses. And really, it's that drawing out. Elżbieta mentioned it earlier, this drawing out of responses from students, some of whom, like myself, were uncertain about where their work would go and whether they would even finish this colossal dissertation. And two of the doctoral seminars stand out. One which was on what is culture, and the other was on truth and politics. I mean, two texts, particularly Truth and Politics, which is highly relevant today in the internet world, but also the offline world. So during those seminars, what was it that really hit me was that, Jeff, you create a kind of symphony of discussion, which is a kind of improvised jazz, right? This is what, it's jazz. And I remember Adorno didn't like jazz, right? But you do. And Jeff too, Jeff Isaacs, right? Jazz. So after graduating from the New School and teaching for a few years at NYU's Gallatin and then the General Studies program, and at the New School's Eugene Lang, I then met Melik, Kattago, who Elżbieta brought here from a crazy Estonia, right? Not Astoria, but Estonia. Yeah. And then, as she said, the rest is history. I went the direction that most people don't go. I went east. I went to the wild, wild east. And I spent most of my academic career teaching there. So celebrating Jeff's intellectual engagement in the public sphere is an enormous honor, because the more that I teach and write, the more I realize how much the graduate faculty has shaped my way of engaging with the world in all of its beauty and its increasing fragility. I mean, I'm looking here at Ira Katznelson, I can't believe it, And there, where was Judith Friedlander? I remember her book on Vilnius. This was just, I mean, incredible, right? And there's Bill Hurst. I mean, just amazing, right? From my perspective, amazing, right? And to be celebrating Jeff today. So I had the distinct privilege of learning from many scholars and professors at the New School, among them Andrew Arado, right? But when it comes to the true meaning of the seminar, Jeff's fundamental insight about the power of concerted action around a table remains the cornerstone, I think, of civic education and democratic engagement that I return to time and time again. So your pedagogy, Jeff, indeed your sociological approach to the world resonates with many of Hannah Arendt's ideas, but most of all, her enduring metaphor of the table. So what does she write in The Human Condition? To live together in the world means essentially that a world of things is between those who have it in common. As a table is located between those who sit around it, the world, like every in-between, relates and separates men at the same time. There's something in the table that you fundamentally understand. So what else, though, that is so fascinating, I think, is the idea that you have, Jeff, that individuals interact with the world. It's this interaction, yeah. But not only with the world, but with ideas and traditions that we hold in common or that we violently struggle over. But your skill, Jeff, is that around a table, the craft that you've perfected in the classroom with students like myself is then translated into geographically various places that the Democracy Seminar has operated, and virtually. And Claire, I think, is a marvelous example of this. But it's this spirit of the seminar that it really serves as a way in which individuals can engage with one another, as you write early on, about fundamental problems of the human condition and pressing problems of the day. That was your byline for deliberately considered, right? Yeah. So from your early fascination with these kitchen tables in communist Poland, that was kind of an alternative to the politics of despair, right? To the democracy and diversity summer schools, deliberately considered, public seminar, and now democracy seminar. You invite intellectuals, faculty, and students to engage with one another, to think critically. So just a little bit of a quick recap here. I mean, you invited me in 2012 to participate in Democratically Considered. Then in 2014, to public seminar. And then it was maybe another 10 years later, you wrote out of the blue and said, there's going to be this marvelous talk headed by Pavel Chichel, who was a Czech student that you were working with and Elżbieta was working with in the European Commission with Europe for the Europe for Citizens program. And this was an amazing invitation. I went there, I met Iri Decker, who's going to be talking shortly. And what was the table then? Then it was the table which were very spirited tables at the European Union, more particularly at the Commission. So then there's another link that we share, though, and that is this longstanding interest in the politics of memory, democracy, and education. And what you wrote in The Cynical Society in the 1990s, I think, really resonates. I take memory to be the primary cognitive resource for avoiding cynicism. And I really find that to be important. Why? Cynicism leads to resignation and withdrawal from the world, while discussion and debate open opportunities to listen to one another and to find common ground. So as Jeff's art of the seminar expanded to being a blogger and editor, so did the interest in global readership of public seminar. You reached out again in 2017, Jeff, with an invitation to read a wonderful student's dissertation on cracks in the Latvian national memory that you were supervising along with Elżbieta. So now one of the patterns should be visible to all of you in Jeff's art of the seminar, with his unique gift for listening to the voices around him, including, of course, what I would say first and foremost to students' voices. Jeff reaches out to students and colleagues with whom he agrees, as well as with those with whom he does not agree. In order why? To place them together in spirited debate. Jeff invites us basically to leap into the unknown with him. We got to leap. Now, a few months ago, Jeff and I talked on Zoom, and his warmth, his humor, and his sharp intellect emanated through the virtual screen. And mind you, this is 2 years into the pandemic. You're still able to do that. I don't think I do with my students. You did. So afterwards, I listened to a webinar that he convened with participants from Afghanistan, Brazil. There's Daniel over there, Daniel Perez, and Poland, South Africa, Shireen, who's over there, and the US, Jeff Isaacs. Well, I was once again witnessing Jeff's alchemy as he introduced the speakers around the Zoom table, framed the discussion, and called on them to engage with one another to address the topic, which was collaboration and democracy, confronting enemies, opponents, and friends. Time flew by as I was transfixed back to my graduate school days while wrapped in the power of their spirited and informed debate. Now, again, 2 years into the pandemic, I was a Zoom zombie, and this did not happen. No, because you did it. In many of his writings and long experience of organizing discussions, I think he cultivates 5 central themes that are vital to the public sphere. Firstly, the power of concerted action is for him, like Hannah Arendt, a kind of lost tradition. As he writes, to focus on small things is not to abdicate responsibility, but to take it. It is not only momentous revolutionary events and wars that motivate how people act, but the deeply ingrained patterns, prejudices, joys, and grievances of everyday life. Discussion and the debate have the potential for action, and this is why I'm in practical philosophy. It's about action and ethics and social change. Secondly, Jeff has a long-standing interest, like Arendt and Irving Goffman, in the power that's generated by the interaction between people and their critics. Hence, perhaps, his fascination with the seminar as the ideal form of democratic engagement and with the role of actors and spectators within a theater. New beginnings emerge from unpredictable interactions between and among people. Thirdly, from the blogs deliberately considered to public seminar and democracy seminar, Jeff, similar to de Tocqueville and Robert Bellah, seeks to understand not only democracy as a form of government, but as a way of life. As he writes in The Politics of Small Things, when people talk to each other, defining a situation in their own terms and developing a capacity to act in concert, they constitute a democratic alternative to terror and hegemonic force. Democratic culture is rooted in the ability to speak and debate with one another about issues of common concern. So fourthly, it's not necessary for us to agree with one another, but to listen, disagree, and debate with civility. And that's something nobody has yet talked about, civility. As the internet transforms the politics of small things, as the internet transforms the politics of small things, Jeff has expanded his fascination with kitchen tables and war, started classrooms at the New School and blogs, and we've heard about very beautifully and amazingly from Claire. There is, though, this attempt to remain committed within this transformation to online, to the power of interaction among individuals to start something new. Internet blogs, as he writes, the internet mediated politics of small things is more like a seminar room than like a political advertisement on television or a broadcast soundbite. He wrote that in Politics of Small Things. The internet mediated politics of small things is more like a seminar room. And that's amazing, right? It's spontaneous interaction, plurality, and the freedom to speak in public that animates your art of the seminar, as I understand it and am indebted to. Of utmost importance for this art of the seminar is to combine civility and subversion. To combine them both. From the Socratic origins of critical dialogue in the Athenian polis to the distinct role of intellectuals in democratic societies and dissidents in authoritarian ones, Jeff argues for the possibility to subvert unjust and undemocratic practices with deliberation and civility. Fifthly and lastly, Jeff's art of the seminar creates alternatives to the seductive and pervasive currents of cynicism. As he argues in The Cynical Society, cynicism in our world is a form of legitimation through disbelief. Reinforced by manipulative media, disinformation, deep fakes, and bold lies, cynicism prevents concerted action. Because why? As he writes, it promotes the acceptance order of things. Reasoned deliberation, spirited disagreement, and informed debate serve as alternatives to the malaise of cynicism and paralysis of relativism. Alternatives are by no means a foregone conclusion of engaged debate, but a promise and a possibility. Wrapped in the darkness of cynicism, it's easy to become numb to the injustices around us. While we may lack clear black and white solutions, as he writes in a recent blog on democracy and social justice, engaged debate and the willingness to listen to one another, both online and off, open the possibility to shake off cynicism and moral blindness in order to find alternatives together. Many of this room today have been privileged to experience the magic that occurs when Jeff conjures a seminar of spirited participants who are passionate about their beliefs while open to listening to the views of others, unlike Donald Trump, for whom the art of the deal is transactional and means cynical competition, bribery, and blatant lies. Jeff Goldfarb's art of the seminar fosters the art of persuasion, critical debate, and spontaneous interaction within the framework of civility. Because when people come together to speak and to listen to one another, as he writes, alternatives do appear. Thank you, Jeff.